If you're just joining us, you're listening to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, July 26, 2017. We will now entertain questions from the media and start with Bibi Hatsha of SMN News.
Good morning, Ministers. Good morning, Giselle, and thank you. Minister Emmanuel, good morning. Notice you didn't make an opening statement. So my question to you is, how updated are you with GEBE, especially what is taking place right now?
Good morning to you and everyone else here today. You mentioned how updated am I with GEBE and what is happening right now. You'll probably have to elaborate a bit more when you mention the update. I would want to consider myself to be probably in the loop with what is going on. I know right now down at the power plant there is a possible strike or walkout, if I should call it that. The operators are a bit frustrated with some of the things that is going on. I'm well informed with the ins and outs of why they decided to take that decision, and I have my peoples working the grounds to sort of quiet down the situation a bit, but it's something that is ongoing right now, and we are looking into the situation. But in terms of being updated right now, that is what I know is going on right now in GEBE.
Thank you, Bibi. We move over to Mr. Andrew Dick of the Daily Herald.
Yes, good morning to all ministers. Minister Boseman, concerning the forum or a gathering that you plan on organizing, do you have a date as to when this will take place?
No, I just throw that out, and my colleagues that I mentioned just heard it for the first time. I will be I'll be touching base, and it was good to hear the event that Minister Jacobs mentioned that will be taking place. The whole idea is that we need to start reflecting on some of these issues that contribute to the type of crimes, and in general, I'm thinking on all stakeholders. I'm thinking on the churches. I'm thinking on community leaders. I think it's just time that we settle down out of the hustle a bit and get together and start reflecting on some of these community issues that contribute to crime. And we need to do that together. So it is a feeling that came up because of this horrific crime that was committed, and I throw it out because I know you would hold me to making sure that I live up to it. So that's why I throw it out.
Thank you, Ms. Alita Singh of the Daily Herald.
Thank you, Giselle. Good morning, Ministers. Minister Jacobs, a while back you had started a project to measure all of the monuments on the island. Can you say if that process has been completed and if the Monument Council is up and running and has that information already?
Thank you, Alita. Good morning. I have not received the final report in terms of the measurement. They had started. They went on a priority basis. So basically, if someone submitted a monument permit for reconstruction purposes or construction purposes, then that took precedence. So the ones that were awaiting their permits were remeasured, and that was done. For instance, I know the one at the MAC in Ebenezer Estate, as well as some others, but I don't have the list at hand and haven't received the total overview as yet. But it continues. The Monument Council is still functioning, yes, and working on several pending permit requests.
Thank you, Ms. Lyndon Brown of BCN News.
Minister Jacob, for the past time there was some plan to enhance the school bus transportation in St. Martin. Can you share how far this process?
Well, the two ministries that are responsible for school bus transportation, we do still have the committee that is established for that. We've started to inform the school bus operators that some changes will come. I think I mentioned that more than a month ago. And we are still working out the logistics of how it will be improved and how we will make it more efficient and effective. And so we believe that we should have that information session with the school bus operators before we divulge anything further to the general public. And once that is done, then we can share that information with you.
Thank you, Bibi.
Thank you, Giselle. Minister Emmanuel, you mentioned that there is a walkout or workers at the power plant is upset or something like that. Can you confirm if the workers at the power plant is demanding that management of GEBE resign because of a lot of things that are taking place within the power plant? For example, the engine 20 that was installed in December, now 7 months later, have not yet been serviced.
Really?
I'm asking you, you said you updated.
That's what you want me to answer? If the workers want management to resign, then that's a question you'll have to ask the workers, Bibi. I can't think for the workers. And no, even if that is the case, I will not answer that question, because I think it's a question first that will have to be an internal discussion. So, no, I will not answer that question.
Move over to Anita.
Thank you again, Giselle. Sticking with Minister Emmanuel, do you have any update on the Pearl of China project? Of course, they had permits in that belonged to the old Barbaron project. Then they were going to shift or find a new location. Can you give an idea whether you have permits in for a new location or if they are going to continue with the location that there is now?
As far as I know, no new permits has been sent in relations to the Pearl of China. I know there's discussion going on right now in terms of not directly looking for a new location for the whole development, but for part of the development, given the restrictions at the said location, which is there in Bel Air. All that they want to get done within that development is not possible at the said location. So they are looking into possibly acquiring more land elsewhere to shift part of the development in a different location. But I believe that the Pearl of China, in terms of their, how should I say it, the excavation permit, the retaining wall permit, those are the permits that they have asked for and have been granted. And I think that they are still working on the logistics in terms of starting. Yeah.
Lyndon.
Minister Bosman, in connection with the prison, over time there was some tension at the prison, and now there's some enhancement of construction outside of the prison. And still there are short staff at the prison. Are you have any plan of at least encourage the young people of St. Martin to be prison guard, seeing that shortly some of the older workers will be history?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is indeed so. There's enhancement taking place in the sense of construction, but it's not being done to make the place look prettier. It's being done to make it look for it to be safer. And right now the shifts are operating with enough people. We have an agreement with the VKS, the Voluntary Corps of St. Martin, and getting very good cooperation from the Commandant, Mr. Rogers, where that is concerned. So the shifts are operating on a sufficient manpower basis. The idea indeed is to recruit additional folks. What we are looking at is to use the voluntary corps as the feed to get the people, as they would have already been going through a process, a disciplinary process, etc., and then to get the training. You cannot just take people and put them in the prison and call them prison guards. So all of those things are falling into place. I'm pretty much satisfied with the means that we have available, how that is going right now. But yes, we are working on that, and we will be looking at the youngsters that are available in order to not everyone is jumping to become prison guards. I can tell you that it's not a easy job or even a safe job. No matter how much you do to make it safe, there's a certain risk with it, just like police officer or custom officer, etc., etc.
Thank you. We move back over to Bibi.
Thank you, Giselle. Minister Jacob, good morning. Can you tell me or give me some update as to persons or civil servants, I should say, that work in the education ministry, teachers, former teachers that are out on RO for a number of years and are trying to get back into service and are not able to get back. I understood at least one person have been meeting with your ministry or your office to get back a position so that they can function. Can you tell me how that process is going?
At least one what is the question exactly? Can you please rephrase or
At least
restate?
tell me you have some workers, at least one of them that you know very well, and I'm not going to call the person name, that have been on RO for at least 6 years or a little less, and is trying to get back into the workforce, but is not being placed.
Okay. Basically, with any teacher or personnel within the system that we have that has been on extended leave, there's usually assessments going on as to readiness for work, and we have been striving to place and replace any that have been deemed, ready for work. Sometimes it's not very easy. As a matter of fact, many of the challenges that we have, especially within the only ministry, or the only system of education, because I think people are not quite clear, is public education, which is the one that I have purview over. The other school boards, there's a relationship, but not that I can make the type of changes, etc., hiring, firing, placing, etc. Within public education, we have, and as you know, we've been doing a lot of investigation to bring about changes. What still remains the case, though, is because of we have a high number of teachers, not high, it has been reduced somewhat, but you have to put teachers in the classroom. So depending on what the doctors may say that the person is able to do, we do our best to accommodate them, and sometimes they come in partially and then go full-time or with special circumstances. So I don't know particularly if you're thinking about the same person that I am thinking about, because there are more than one who have a situation, but we are doing all within to find a suitable place for all who are ready to come back to work.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yes, Minister Boseman, on the topic of the prison, as far as training is concerned for new officers, you mentioned that the VECA is being looked at, but what happened to the Justice Academy? Has the plans for training uniformed officers changed, or what's happening with that?
Oh no. As a matter of fact, the Justice Academy is being worked at. The Justice Academy was never formalized. The status of the Justice Academy was never formalized in let's say the legal position of the Justice Academy, and that is why it was encountering certain problems as far as certification and all of those type of things. I just received the draft, the Justice Academy. It would be proposed by me to put the Justice Academy as a foundation, and that soon, as far as the thing would be brought to the Council of Ministers, and that would formalize the Justice Academy, by which you can then continue to build on it. They've been working under very tough and strenuous situations as it is. What I mentioned with the recruitment, I would make a comparison in baseball. A lot of the professional clubs, they have a farm system, okay, where the youngsters come through the farm system and then would move through. The VECA-S is an organization, it's a voluntary organization. There are also people working, are members of the VECA-S who are unemployed, okay? It's a voluntary organization. They are sacrificing, as it is already, their time, and they're assisting the police. Some of them are in the prison already assisting. When we have disasters, the VECA-S is always there, and they're doing that voluntarily. So that initial discipline is there. So it would be more than logical that if there are folks who are VECA-S members and have been already trained in that discipline, that doesn't make them prison guards. They would then still have to go and do the training the training to become prison guards. But they would have had already that discipline in a sort of let's say, military situation where they know that complying is very detrimental, not only to their safety, but the safety of the others. So the one does not take away the other. On the contrary, is going parallel, because if we hire people, like I said, you cannot take someone off the street and make them a prison guard. So when you start recruiting people to become prison guards, you should have the possibility to be able to train them, to give them the education. And that makes it very necessary that the academy is functioning properly. So it's a joint something that is taking place.
Giselle, you just have a query on what the minister just says. Is that possible? And then I can have my question as well.
No. We have a couple more rounds. You can go ahead with your clarification.
Minister, what has happened then with those students, if we can call them that, have been trained already via the Justice Academy and have been certified?
No, the Justice Academy has been operating. The Justice Academy have been conducting training. There are people on the Justice Academy for police, and but the police is, for instance, is doing their trainings in collaboration with the Dutch Police Academy. So the certification that they are getting is based on that collaboration with the Police Academy. But the Justice Academy, as we know it here itself, the institution itself, has no legal entity, is not hasn't been legally established. Right.
Okay, just my question now, it's both for Minister Boseman and Minister Lee. We're heading towards finishing up half of the year. Can you say what's the numbers on work permits and residence permits that you have received recently? Is it on target, and is it up to what, of course, you're expecting in revenues?
If I start for residence permit, I don't have the figures yet. As you may know, the issuing of residence permit has been mandated to the director of the department. So I do not make decisions on who gets or who do not get. It is done on my behalf. I've requested, and hopefully soon I'll be getting the figures for the first half year, and once I have those, I'll be glad to share them with you.
Similar. Actually, I've asked for the report. I haven't seen it as yet. I think this was a question that came from Parliament as well, so preparing, but I haven't received the report yet.
Mr. Brown.
Minister Emmanuel, in connection with the airport, we had an unusual tragedy at the airport, and you said that you had some conversation with Mr. Bonkampo. Well, I asked you last week, and well, I believe that you are still in consultation. But what is happening now? Is there any police patrol or any further sign to avoid people from getting close to the fence?
What I can tell you is I know we here as government, the last discussion we had in the Council of Ministers also relating to the incident with a plane where someone threw a ball at Amerijet. We had one of the airport officials on the line, and we were coming up with possible solutions as how we can tackle this issue. So amongst us as government and Council of Ministers, we are looking into the matter very seriously, and we are coming up with a case plan on how we are going to tackle the issue down at the Maho and the end of the runway.
Thank you. Bibi?
Thank you, Giselle. Minister Lee, we are about reaching the end of July. Can you tell me if you have secured financing for the new general hospital? And can you say also in the same light if APS has fully committed themselves to be part of the be a financier?
We are working diligently on securing the financing. I expect to have confirmation on very short notice, but trust me, we are daily in consultation. You know, you got to remember that this is they have to do their proper due diligence process. So they ask for documentation, they ask for different evaluations. We answer, sometimes they have follow-up questions. So that is exactly what we're doing, is completing that due diligence process. So far, it looks very positive, and I hope to have this finalized very soon.
Remember, I think the original target date was the end of July, so I think we still have like another week or so. So I'm pushing. Thank you, Bibi.
Andrew?
Yes, Minister Emmanuel, sticking to the airport, does that mean that the proposal or the discussion of rerouting the road is completely off the table, or is it still being discussed?
You know, it's interesting that you bring up that question because it seems to be a Facebook phenomenon, the rerouting of the road, when I mentioned it last week. But let me sort of bring you up to speed a bit. And like I mentioned, I said it was a possible solution and discussion that I was having down at the Ministry of VROMI. It is not a new idea that I just came up with one time. And I want to ask many people, do you know the reason why the divider was placed in the middle of the road? What's the reason for the divider that is there? Let's bear in mind, Andrew, that we had one individual that lost half of her face when she tripped and scraped it on the concrete boulder that is placed there to stop the sand. And what we have now is another individual that lost her life also. The concrete divider was placed in the middle of the road because cars used to park there to get a thrill. When the jet blast hit the car, it would shake. You remember a couple of years ago, Atos was blown into the water? That's the reason why the divider was placed there. What I'm saying is that that road should be a one-way road. It should be able to come in, and you're supposed to go out, going down along Character and coming out at that area. That's government property. That's government land. A partial road is already there. We can pull the fence back to where the divider is. You still get the thrill. You still get the blowing back of the airplane. The difference is you can get blown in the sand, not on the concrete. We can say what all we want to say, but at the end of the day, this is something that people come to St. Martin to enjoy. We are not condoning it. We are not saying it's legal because it's not. However, there's 101 signs there, and people still do it. I had that call last night on the radio on a program where I was at, and I told a young gentleman, but I know you very well. And we used to ride scooters, and we used to be wheeling in the middle of the road with no helmets on. And police would stop us and say, listen, put on your helmet or we take the bike. We knew it was wrong, but we still did it. At some point in time, you sort of have to save people from themselves. You don't want tourists to stop coming to this island. Government has a responsibility for safety. That's what it is. It's about safety. It's not about stopping anyone. It's not about moving businesses, moving this. I don't understand how one person can say something and then it turns out to totally be something else. That's the reason why it was a possible discussion. So what you're going to get, as a matter of fact, let me go a bit more. Coming to you just now on the other question. Do you know when the sand completely covers that road, the whole residence of Beacon Hill is cut off? They can't get in and they can't get out. You know what government has to do? Go in there with a front end loader and move all that sand from there. When that sand is eroded and it moves away, you see big, huge boulders. Those boulders are not there because the beach put them there, you know. Government put those boulders there because they had plans to push it out. Those plans are already on the books. That's the reason why you see those huge, huge, big boulders. It's not from the beach. Those are not boulders from the beach. Those are boulders that was put there by government that came from Marigot waterfront, yeah, to move the beach a bit back and fill it up to stop that same problem that we are talking about today. And that was years ago. And then you hear people mention, oh, but hundreds of thousands of tourists come and it's just one death. Well, for me, it's one death too much. It's one death too much. And I always tell people, they may not like to hear it, but I'm going to say it. It's not your child. So you could say that.
Thank you. Alita?
Thank you, Giselle. Minister Lee, in your opening statement, one of the things you mentioned was teenage pregnancy. Could you give an idea of how we are tracking that on St. Martin and what our numbers are like at the moment?
Something I'd have to get back to you on. But, you know, anecdotally, you know, in particular where I see it is where we get requests for financial aid. And you'll see that sometimes there's you know, people who are young who have already a baby, pregnant with another, looking for financial assistance. And when I see those kinds of things, I say, you know, look, you know, I believe there's an issue here. So I'm waiting for, again, for statistics, especially following up on our discussion with Curaçao. But again, I've seen, families that are really challenged to support, and then you see teens who don't finish their education because they have to take care of a child, and that creates, other long-term social issues. So, sort of similar to how Minister Emmanuel says, even if the number is a relatively low number, it's too much. I think at least we need to make sure that we're providing the education and the guidance, the resources to try and bring that number down, whatever number it is. You're welcome.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Jacob, and the school bus transportation again and again. Some people are fearful that they might be interrupt. The changes that are in process, and their fears. Can you just give the people some hope?
Well, I think when I stood up, I don't know how long ago it was. I was away for a week, so it seems like a long time ago, but it was definitely when school was still on. And I made some statements about the school bus budget and it being properly depleted. Now, the school bus budget covers not only taking children to and from school, it also covers the educational aspects. So the students or the schools that require students to be bused for gym, swimming, and the like, that's also paid out of that budget. So it's a great concern. It's a concern that we know about for about 5 years now. Yeah, 5 years. And yes, we can continue to scream and shout. And in the past 5 years, the budget grew out of proportion. So tough decisions have to be made. Now, if you have been collecting more than you should have been collecting, then yes, you will see a decrease in what you receive from government. But is it fair for us to continue to pay for services, overpaying for services, instead of being able to carry out the services we should? This ministry has had to make several cuts. And if we already started a process to be able to cut back on the school busing budget, and the process didn't finish in time, so the budget ran out. The policy is being finalized, and the LBAM, as I mentioned before, that would help us to regulate, because according to the law, it grew out of control, but according to the law, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports is only mandated to provide school busing for those who otherwise